Hey guys, Ollie the Vanguard Boys here bringing you another new Angel Feather deck profile. I know that this time it's not for premium, but trust me, that's going to come soon once we get the premium collection in. I've got some really great ideas to take the Gabriel deck that I made last year up a notch. But this time I want to bring you what, in my opinion, maybe a bit controversial to say, is the best Angel Feather deck in V Premium. And I don't even mean that as an insult to the clan. Obviously, Gabriel without Hamiel isn't in a place that it should be. Ramael, while I think is a really fun deck, doesn't exactly apply any pressure, though there are some new cards I'm going to be experimenting with at my locals. But I think with the consistency, power, and the ability to defend itself and heal every single turn, I think Malkuth Melekh is actually a top tier competitive Angel Feather deck. And coincidentally, this past week a few Angel Feather decks have actually topped, and there have been some in Japan that have consistently topped in their locals, and one of those decks actually topped at a Portugal Springfest. So I'm going to talk about that one at the end of the profile, but this one is the one that I'm currently playing with, currently experimenting with. I'm not 100% sold whether this is the deck at its most optimal degree, but has some interesting tech options, and I can explain kind of like my experience with playing with it. So that's the introduction right there. Let's go ahead and get to the deck profile.
We'll find it way beyond the stars, becoming who we are. We'll learn to fight again. We have to fight for them.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get into the grade 3s. Of course, this deck absolutely needs to run Arcader Malkuth Melekh. So he originally came out in the Astral set a few years ago that introduced the Genesis Astral Poets, which was really cool at the end of the Shinamon arc there. So right now I've got one SVR, but I got 3 more in the mail. Just don't ever, get on TCG Player when you really are hungry for new cards, because you're just going to press that buy now button, which is what I did. But I'm really excited. I kind of want to make this deck max rarity. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really enjoying this deck a lot. So basically, on principle, he does a few things. On place, you Counterblast 2 to activate the first skill. If your opponent's on grade 2, you'll deal them a damage, which is, not terrible. And if your opponent's on grade 3, you're going to heal 1. And originally, the second skill kind of combined with that first one to make it quote-unquote free, where you Soul Blast 1, basically call 3 units from your drop and deal yourself a damage. But at the end of the V Premium format, before Overdress started, this deck got a lot of new support that not only increased its consistency, but made it completely viable in the V Premium format. So that Soul Blasting to call 3 units out and give them 5k is absolutely crucial, especially since the word says till end of turn. So your 2 rear guards will get that 5k just for coming out of the drop. And it's a really cool way to make sure that, like, despite the fact that the deck doesn't draw a super lot, you're always going to be able to call units out and always be able to attack every single turn as long as you're riding Malkuth Melekh, and that's important for the combos. Of course, this was the new unit right here. I've got 1 SP, got another one coming in the mail, trying to pick some up, but there's a lot of cool Vanguard buyouts going on right now on TCG Player, so it's a really interesting time for Vanguard. So what this unit does is that it's when during your turn, when it's revealed for a damage check, if you have Arcader Malkuth Melekh as your Vanguard, you'll go ahead and discard and write it as stand. Actually, I don't even think that needs to be during your turn. It says when revealed for a damage check. So I guess that can be considered done as a heal, which is interesting. So basically, you'll write it as stand, get another protect marker. So you'll be able to create 2 protect markers in 1 turn, which is what gives a lot of value to Protect 2 in this deck, because let's be honest, Protect 2 is probably some of the weakest out of the markers, especially since you're choosing that over a Perfect Guard, but we'll get into why it's actually okay in this deck. And then if you have 2 or more protect markers, your front row gets plus 10,000. So ideally, this is going to be your second ride, because you're going to superior ride it over the Malkuth Melekh. So your front row will get plus 15, and you'll get plus 10 right here. And then all of your units with a protect marker can't be retired by player effects, which, considering like Luard's a really good deck that can break boards and plus really easily, that's actually really nice, because you're able to kind of scale with them and guard efficiently. I'm not saying this deck is better than Luard, but you can definitely keep up in the grind game as long as you don't let it go too terribly long. So let's go ahead and go into my grade 2 lineups. This one doesn't necessarily need any introductions. Yafkael is the Angel Feather unit that just keeps this clan going. On place, Counterblast, pick a card from your damage zone, add it to your hand, and deal yourself a damage and gain 3k. Works great on Vanguard Circle, works great on Rearguard Circle, is a named once per turn, but still, Pretty cool card, and with Malkuth Melekh's ability to keep reoccurring units, if you have an open counterblast, this is a good way to keep your hand bigger for being able to guard against your opponent and still gain some numbers right there. So pretty cool card. She becomes 12k, and then Vanguard Circle plus 15, or Rearguard Circle plus 15 from the Malkuths. So it hits for nice numbers. The next grade 2 is probably one of the most important units in this deck. This card is just free. On place on Vanguard Circle, Rearguard Circle, you check top 7. If a card has Malkuth Melekh in its name, you add it to your hand. And then the other part of the effect will be more relevant during your grade turn, but you could also reveal up to 1 Malkuth Melekh card, or I think normal unit card, which is what you'll do with the Shin Archider Malkuth Melekh, put it on top of your deck, so that way when you do the damage check, you're going to be able to superior ride, which is really, really nice. And the thing is, that's the key word is both effects say up to. So you can add up to, but you don't have to add it to get the second skill. And with the second skill, you don't actually have to put it on top of the deck. So it's a free top 7 for either of the Malkuths, and it's a when placed, so it doesn't matter if it's from hand or from drop. You get that skill. So this is going to be one of the consistency cards that you're going to want to keep reoccurring, because the idea is that if you are able to ride into the original Malkuth every single turn, you're going to counterblast 2 to heal, and then you're going to use his effect or another card's effect to stack him on top, and then this one will do a damage check after you resurrect the 3. That's the part that I forgot to remember. And instead of taking that damage, he just superior rides after a discard. So that's the important part, is that you're being able to actually use Malkuth's skill to heal every turn. And yeah, you could definitely just heal 4 turns in a row and have 8 protect markers, and it's really, really nice. And then this right here, a part of the aggro part of the deck, Amputation Angel, when she's on a protect marker, she gains 15k. If you have 3 protect markers on the field, your opponent can't call Sentinel. So she's basically kind of like a more fair version of Hamiel. You're not really rescue checking a lot in this deck. If Yafkel manages to hit a crit, that's just kind of free. But you can create some nice columns. You put a booster behind it. You have 2 or 3 protect markers in the front of the row. You're talking about 50 to 70k columns, depending on what turn you're in, that your opponent just can't guard. And sure, you're a 3 attack deck, but if your opponent can't call Sentinels, and they only have X amount of cards in their hand, they might have to intercept. They might have to break their own board just to be able to guard one of these if it's swinging for lethal. And that thing can pick up 15k on the first turn that you make a protect marker. So you can have some pretty big cards while your opponent's on grade 2 if you end up calling 2 of these to the rear guards or something like that. I think running her at 3 is fine because of the ability to keep resurrecting your cards every single turn, and you have enough to see her, and then you just kind of put them in the drop, and that's the nice thing about the deck right there. And this is my Tekken choice right here. Now, your soul is a very finite resource. There's all kinds of other cool cards that you can play in the deck, but I think the ability to get to 19, which is really, really nice. It's not as big as Amputation Angel, but still 19 is pretty big. And you'll Soul Blast one, so if you have a unit stuck in the soul that you need in the drop and able to resurrect, she can put that unit into the drop. And of course, you heal one and you damage check. And the cool thing is let's say you're playing very defensively and you're counterblasting to every turn to heal. You can call, with using Malkuth's skill, you can call her out, Soul Blast, and then you'll be able to also call Yafke out. So after the damage check is done, you heal one, take a damage, and then use Yafke to pick up that card. So let's say there's a Malkuth in the damage zone that you really, really need, or if you have a perfect guard, you can keep basically yourself healing. And then another cool trick is too, and this also works with Yafkael, is if you don't use the original Malkuth's ability to resurrect your board, but you still stacked the Shin Malkuth on top, as long as you do a damage check, you effectively just healed. You'll pick up a card of the damage zone, add it to your hand, and then you'll take the damage and you'll superior ride still. So I've done that before too. I think one game I played at my locals against a Shiranui player. I had to play it for the grind game on that one. I ended up healing 5 times just through my skills alone. Didn't even heal through heal triggers. I just played very, very defensively. Alright, so grade 1s. Let's go into the consistency first. You've got Persistence Angel here. This is another key card, just like with the grade 2 over here. You've got Holy Lord Angel. He's able to stack a Malkuth on top of your deck. He also lets you cycle your hand. So his key is that you Soul Blast one, draw a card, discard a card, and then take a Malkuth Melekh from your drop and stack it on top of your deck. And that way, when you take the damage, you'll be able to superior ride. Now, let's say you're already in a position where you don't have to do that. You don't need to take the damage. You're already at where you need to be. You can go ahead and play him, put the Malkuth anyways if you haven't done that, because his is just a soft once per turn, and then use the grade 2 to actually fish out the Malkuth Melekh that you want to ride every single turn. Because there's one that you want to ride, and then the other one you want a superior ride. So he's another way of fishing that one out. Like I said, a lot of this deck is just going to be getting the Malkuth Melekhs and just keep riding and riding and riding and generating a ton of protect markers. Of course, Black Call Nakir, of course she's a 13k booster, which is really nice, helps you pick up numbers in the late game if that's what you want to do, and this just helps keep you finding your Malkuth Melekhs. So it's pretty simple, great in the early game, great in the late game, really solid card. This is one that, like, if you want to start doing tech-ins, you can maybe like cut 1 or 2 because you have so many ways of searching or adding Malkuth Melekh. Also 10k shield is on the grade 1 is really nice. And then lastly, probably the MVP of the deck, this is Sectio Angel. This came out with the original Malkuth Melekh support, but basically if you have a protect marker in the same column, cannot be chosen by your opponent's effects, so doesn't have to be on a protect marker to prevent it from being retired, which is really nice. And it can intercept from the back row, which is a nice 10k intercept, or if you do want to put a protect marker on her just to like boost her up and give the extra 5k, that becomes a 20k intercept, which is really cool. I think that is one of the most solid grade 1s for Malkuth Melekh in the game, and I was playing it without this and I still did pretty well, but when I got this finally, I felt like I was able to keep up with a lot of decks, playtesting against Jewel Knights, just being able to like guard their multi-attacks and stuff like that. This is excellent against Excel decks because, the Excel decks, they're not going to hit for very big numbers, but they're going to be doing a lot of multi-attacking, so intercepting is really nice. And then you can keep bringing it back with the Malkuth's Resurrection ability. Here's my trigger lineup. It's very basic. You want to run the four heals. You don't want to get sacked, especially against Force 2. You want to be able to live and outgrind your opponent. You're trying to control how much damage you take. Like I said, if you have 2 open counterblasts and you're riding your Malkuth Melekh, you're going to be healing every single turn. So this just helps you kind of just keep the game going and just keep yourself in the game, and also 15k shield and later, so it's not too terrible either. And then of course I'm running 8 crits. Gotta run the Celestial crit. It's actually one of my favorite crits right there. And lastly, you're gonna run the 4 draw triggers. So I think this deck is really solid. I'm really loving the Aidroids. I'm curious if in Clan Collection what kind of angel support we're going to be getting in Volume 5 and 6. Part of me wonders if we'll end up getting more Aidroid support, or if maybe that they feel like they're pretty tapped out on it. Maybe more Black Angels. It's tough to say. The cool thing about the Aidroids is that they are completely original to V. A lot of V Premium are retrains. I mean, look at like Gabrielle. She existed in G and was a very popular unit. But these Aidroids are 100% just cool original units, and that's something with a very interesting play style. And if you end up spamming out like 8 protect markers on board, your opponent is having to deal with like 45k like intercepts. It's insane. Like being able to guard these like force techs that just like can hit you with multi-attacking on Force 2, or just like force techs that get really big numbers and not having to use that many cards out of your hand, and then able to rebuild your board every turn is such an impressive way to play the game, and I really like this deck quite a bit. So let's go ahead and talk about the really cool deck that also managed to top a regional. There's a gentleman that I met on Twitter. His name is Greg. Username is Sir_Casmo. I'll be sure to put that in the video and in the description. But yeah, his deck, not too dissimilar to mine, has a lot of the same choices, but also some very different tech choices. So he obviously runs the 4 Malkuths, 4 Yafkaels, 4 Holy Lords, but he does tech in an Aidroid Zane, which is a really cool card because, like Salafael, it does gain 10k. It's also board removal, doesn't require any resources, so that's something I might even playtest, getting rid of the Salafaels and putting 2 maybe Zanes in there, just because they hit big numbers, they get to 19, they also deal with your opponent's cards by kicking them into the damage zone and making your opponent heal 1. Yeah, you're giving them a counter charge, but you're going to be able to play very defensively against your opponent and get rid of their really annoying units that might be enabling their turns. He plays Amputation Angel at 4, which again, like super solid card on a protect marker. You're hitting for big numbers, and it gains that 15k during your opponent's turn. Persistence Angel, Sectio Angel, and then the unit that he's teching in is Serrated Saw Angel, which I did pick up those promos myself. It does kind of fix a a problem that the deck can have is that if you don't start being able to re-ride into Malkuth and do your superior ride on your turn, you're basically not generating any protect markers, you're not rebuilding your board, and you're not able to just do the cool plays that you normally do, and you have a very, very vanilla turn, and you don't get the extra 5k to your other 2 front row rear guards, which with the protect marker, you're looking at extra, 20k during your turn, which is really, really nice. And so this right here, what it does is for a counterblast, you choose a card with Malkuth Melekh from your soul, put on top of your deck. But if you didn't ride this turn, you can rewrite it instead of putting it on top of your deck. So he plays this instead of Black Call Nakir, and it's something I've kind of experimented with, but I guess with my playstyle, I ran out of soul very, very fast, especially since I'm playing Solophael. It's probably a lot better with the Adroid Zane. It's definitely something worth trying about. But congrats to him and his team. He went X1, meaning he only lost once in the regional, and his team managed to get 3rd place overall. So, I gotta say, Protect 2, maybe a lot better than people think. And like I said, Malkuth's a really cool deck, really fun to play. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile. And like I said, shout out to Greg, Sir Cosmo, and give that subscribe button a boom, boom, boom.